On the recent Firing Range podcast, a couple of members from the Bungie Sandbox team had a rather significant discussion about the state of the sandbox regarding PvP, with some PvE notes thrown in as well. As you might imagine, this put a damper on my PvP rant/thoughts video that I was working on, so as a result, I am now going to be reacting and giving my thoughts to some of the things mentioned during the podcast instead. I'm not going to be hitting every single detail, just mainly the bigger picture stuff. The podcast is linked in the description, along with some Reddit summaries of it. I used both to make this video, and I highly encourage you to check out all of the sources. Let's start with the development of Stasis. In short, Bungie wanted something to counter all of the W key warriors in the Crucible, shotgunners, and pogo hunters bashing their heads into the ceiling, getting brain damage. They came to the eventual realization that people would rather just kill stuff as opposed to freeze it and then kill it, forcing them to ramp up the subclass to make it feel worthwhile, to the point where it got to be a bit too much and they regretted it and knew that nerfs were going to need to happen. Initially, they didn't really see the value of freezing someone when other supers just instantly killed people, thinking that Stasis players were going to be defensively minded. In PvE was to give yourself some breathing room with ad spawns, majors, champions, and I do think they hit that pretty well in the higher end of gameplay, but in the lower end, Stasis is pretty much not worth using at all. I'm going to try to not be mean about this because they have acknowledged their mistakes and they are actively trying to fix them, but it really does give an interesting view into development. Like, I can't even say you let it out of the gate like that because they knew ahead of time that it was stupid. But it's just the fact that it was able to get to that point in the first place that just boggles the mind a little bit. Warlock, I can see being a little more defensively minded, but when you give Titans an insanely boosted slide in a meta where slide shotgunning was already so dominant, like, what did you think was going to happen? Titans were going to slide away from the danger? You gave them a sliding melee freeze attack, my guy. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on Stasis too much in this. There's a lot to get to, and we've talked about Stasis a lot, but it's kind of just interesting and frustrating. You know, they knew it was stupid. They mentioned Bungie playing PvP on the live game and not exactly saying, you know, yeah, we nailed it while they eat a bowl of Withering Blade cereal. They said that they've learned from this when it comes to making future subclasses, but they didn't really give too much more, which is fine because, you know, they're probably still working on it. So let's move to the light subclasses. They're starting to think more about how ability usage should be enhancing gunplay and coming up with different design strategies. The following is something that they are not doing, but is just kind of for discussion. Maybe having something like a one-shot, skill shot-based grenade, but it's on a super long cooldown, compared to something that might have a very weak effect, but is on a short cooldown. Whenever they change ability cooldowns, they rarely shift the power of them. You know, if they reduce one, they need to bring up another thing, maybe going forward. For example, that means a longer cooldown should mean that a thing deals more damage, unless there's something else at play that affects the power of the ability. I'm interested to see if they do anything with this design space. They also mentioned roaming versus one-shot supers, kind of in that same area. I don't think the nerf one thing while buffing another is as black and white as I described it, and I would also say not to expect there to always be a 1-to-1 ratio of stuff like that happening. Sometimes stuff is just too good and it needs to be brought down, like Top Tree Dawn, for example. Quote, Top Tree Dawn is way too hot. It's anime AF, definitely fantasy driven, but it's not where we want every class. It's no surprise, no secret, Top Tree Dawn is too hot, end quote. When asked about ideal balance in terms of subclasses and where they would like the subclasses to be, they referenced Bottom Tree Voidwalker and Top Tree Stormcaller. Bottom Tree Gunslinger was also referenced in terms of this kind of ideal balance. It seems like they don't want Top Tree Dawn to be the bar that everything else has to match, and personally, I'm very okay with that. I'm honestly kind of surprised that Top Tree Dawn has gotten away with being as strong as it is for so long. But I think people are mainly focused on Stasis being the pain point, so other stupid stuff gets to fly under the radar for the time being. Them mentioning that Top Tree Dawn is too strong does not come as any sort of a surprise to me. I hope it would not come to a surprise to any of you. It's very strong. I'm hoping that they can nerf it without it affecting PvE too much, as the PvE fantasy of tons of ability energy is very enjoyable. While I would be interested in seeing what Destiny would look like if everything was as strong as Stasis or Top Tree Dawn, I don't think I'd actually want to live it. I've enjoyed Destiny PvP the most when people haven't been flying all over the place and when abilities take a back seat to guns. I think making everything like Top Tree Dawn would be too hectic for the game, and you probably know this already, but I don't subscribe to the notion that we should always buff everything up as opposed to nerfing some problematic things down. Sometimes things are too strong or they don't align with what the devs want, even if it's what the community wants. Moving on, they reiterate one of their unchanging philosophies in that Destiny should feel the same everywhere you go in the game, which is probably why we won't be seeing completely different sandboxes for PvE and PvP, at least maybe not at the moment, or at least maybe not in the way that people want it to be. This doesn't surprise me at all. It's been like this since the first day of the franchise. When it comes to movement, they also believe things are a bit too movement dominant in PvP right now. We're not going to go back to year one, but there are some adjustments to be made. They gave Titan Stasis Slide as an example. It's so fast, especially combined with a melee, that there's rubber banding issues with it, saying that the pre-nerf version was way too fast. They gave hints mentioning that 6 seconds on Icarus Dash might be a bit too strong, but they didn't really expand on that any further. It seems like they want moments of power to have a cost, or certain playstyles to have a cost to running them. Roaring Flames was an example given of something that is earned, mainly the ability to get one-shotting grenades or hammers after you've ramped up your buff. Shoulder Charge is a high-risk, high-reward ability due to the prevalence of shotguns in the Crucible, although they do mention that it's difficult to use in PvE and that they could potentially fix that. I assume they mean in higher difficulty content where most melee things struggle. People ask me a lot. You know, they always want to know about Destiny 1, bringing back Destiny 1 exotics. Datto, you want to see Twilight Garrison back in the game? And my answer is always, no! I really don't. I really don't. Like, I don't mind some bursts of movement every now and then, but my idea of Destiny PvP doesn't really consist of movement that rivals Quake. I don't want to see Destiny become an arena shooter with this insane movement. Again, I'm not a fan of give everyone the super strong stuff all the time. I think Destiny PvP plays better when things are a little bit slower than they are right now. Just a little bit, and I do think we've teetered over to the edge of balance when it comes to movement capability in the game right now. I'm also big on cost ratios. Right now, there aren't many very strong things in the game that also come at a cost. That's why Stasis was so brutal. The easiest, most brain-dead stuff in the game gave you the biggest benefits. It's why I think the Crucible as a whole is the most disrespectful it's ever been. There are no penalties to doing any of this stuff. There's no penalties to running around with a shotgun for an entire match. There are no weaknesses for running Stasis. There is none of that. You sacrifice nothing to have all of this insane power all of the time. Spamming GLs around corners, who effing cares? Nowadays, people are used to just getting away with anything they want because Bungie has enabled those sensibilities for so long. It is easily the biggest frustration I have about the Crucible today, besides the cheating issue. Anti-cheat, by the way, security, none of that was mentioned during the podcast, as the people on the podcast work on the Sandbox team and the weapons team, not the security team. It's not their job. You're not going to ask me about lore. You know, I'll put it that way. Fallout tried asking about Rift. They said it's not their department. Thanks for trying, bud. There's a bunch of stuff here about the Dead Man's Tale development process, it being a 120 scout, etc., etc. But in terms of the Sandbox, a nerf is coming that will hopefully affect keyboard and mouse players more than it will controller players. A Dead Man's Tale nerf is very expected. It's so good right now. It's too good. I don't know if it's game-breakingly good, but a little chipping away at its power is not unexpected. Let's move to special weapons in general now, and this is where I have some concerns. All they really say in terms of doing something about shotguns is, quote, some shifting that needs to be done, end quote. Shotguns are dominant, but they chose to hit snipers first because there's not much you can do against a good sniper, whereas at least with a shotgunner, you can try to run or move away or counter shotgun. Getting special ammo is a moment of power for players. It's important to have them get that one-hit kill. Grenade launchers should be hard to use utility weapons. I'm summarizing, but this is, all them. My issue here, before I kept listening and reading, was special ammo is no longer a moment of power when you have special ammo for the entire match. And GLs are not hard to use, nor are they utility weapons as they are right now. This goes back to the penalties conversation. There's no penalty for focusing entire games on only using a shotgun or any special, because special ammo is everywhere with scavenger mods, and movement capabilities enable this behavior even more. They said they don't plan on touching GLs since their use rate is too low, so maybe I'm gonna have to go make a video on how stupidly annoying and easy they are to use in PvP and make them a little more popular. Or maybe I'm just overreacting. I guess we'll find out. Also, shotguns have been dominant, but they nerfed snipers first. I'd be more fine with that if it felt like anything has happened to shotguns besides quick draw in the past 2 years? How long do they need to be dominant before they get reined in? How much longer? They do go on to say that specials are too easy to use, not much counterplay, special ammo is everywhere, and that they're looking at that soon, potentially bringing special ammo weapons down before looking at primary weapons. They go on to say that 120 RPM hand cannons are a little too hot, but they're worried about making 140s the dominant thing again. Otherwise, they think pulses and SMGs are around where they want them. Autos are a little bit low. They're wary about buffing scouts because they don't want a scout rifle meta to form, as it can be oppressive, but they are looking at ways to buff scouts that hopefully won't make it very oppressive. Hand cannons, scouts, and machine guns are getting tuned for PvE reasonably soon, which I'm hoping to mean buff, as they are not the best options for endgame PvE content. Machine guns are notably weak in the endgame. They did mention the double slug quick swap thing, saying that they probably need to touch on it as well, where you can rapidly flip between 2 slug shotguns for insane burst and sustain damage on Templar or Taniks or any boss really. I don't feel like having another argument with the lol PvE who cares crowd, but this is something that needs to be addressed beyond, just giving Templar more health, because that's not how you fix problems. Doing something like that would only pressure more people into using said quick swap, and that should not be the goal, regardless of the fact that Templar does really desperately need more health. If you normalize something like double slug quick swapping, that means Bungie has to balance around it in the future, meaning anyone not using it is now at a disadvantage. Ideally, you want to be able to use anything you want in PvE when it comes to something like boss damage. Finally, they said that there are no plans to roll back the Shadowkeep precision damage nerfs because the game is a lot different now, and I imagine a lot of the balance changes were done as a result of those nerfs, which I guess is fine considering they plan on buffing hand cannon, scouts, and machine guns soon. They're trying to mitigate that nerf on certain weapons, but there is no timeline. Oh, and they also know that Mythoclast is not performing well. They're looking at something for Season 15. I do still plan on doing a video on Mythoclast, though. That's the big stuff from the podcast. Overall, liking what I'm seeing here. Still a couple of pain points for me where I'm just kind of like, dudes, get it together. But I'm trying not to get mad. I think most of the things mentioned here are not terribly surprising. It's mainly going to come down to how quickly some of these changes can roll out. Mainly looking at shotguns, now that Stasis has received another big nerf, although I haven't played any PvP with the nerfs just yet. People know that shotties are good, people know Stasis was broken, people know Top Tree Dawn is good, and now it's just a matter of what's going to be done about them, and the fact that they've at least been acknowledged is good. We'll see where it goes. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Super glad. super excited that that is in the game right there. That's very, very good.